So thank you everyone, and again, good evening to all the participants. As you've heard, my name is Eric Thuranira from Kenya. And thank you so much also for the opportunity to share with you today about the impact of climate change on coral reefs globally. I know most of us maybe don't get to see the corals frequently, but I don't think I don't think the out of sight can be out of mind for such important ecosystem, bearing in mind how they're really important for the ocean. So even as the world tries to work to deal with the climate change issues, I think we also need to keep an eye ourselves on the coral reefs. And also, what I'm going to share with you today is part of what I've been doing for the last couple of years, around 4 or 5 years. Although this is still a continuous project, which we are doing in Watamu to monitor corals and see how they're coping with the change of the climate. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we can begin. Yeah, so we are talking about the impact of climate change on coral reefs in Watamu Marine National Park. So this is a site. This is one of the marine parks here in Kenya, one of the oldest marine parks in Kenya, and this is where we've been doing most of our studies regarding the coral reefs. So maybe a bit of introduction regarding the coral reefs. I know maybe some of us are new to this topic and probably want to learn and know what are these coral reefs, where do they thrive, something like that. So basically, coral reefs usually grow in tropical waters, usually 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south of the equator. Usually this is an area whereby the waters in this optimal temperature, whereby the corals can be able to thrive well. And also there's a lot of probably sunlight in these areas, because if you look at the feeding mode of the corals, you realize that at some point they depend on sunlight to be able to photosynthesize and make their own food. So again, they grow within this optimal temperature between 23 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius. One important thing with one significant thing with the coral reefs is that you realize they cover a very small percentage of the ocean, which is actually around 1%. But if you look at the amount of life that inhabits these reefs, you'll be surprised, because 25% of all the marine life they thrive in this ecosystem. Again, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of things which haven't been explored in the coral reefs. And actually, if you read some papers, you realize that some say we have close to around 8 million undiscovered species, which actually most of them live in this coral reef. So you can see broadly that they are quite important ecosystem. If we look at some of the species which are associated with coral reefs, we realize we have these examples. We have a triggerfish, we have a butterfly fish. Triggerfish is very important in ecosystem because it usually feeds on these sea urchins, and it's able to control or keep an ecological balance of the ecosystem. We have other examples like groupers. We have the angelfish. We have examples like snappers. We have parrotfish. And again, one significant thing with the parrotfish is that it's a fish that usually feeds on algae, so it's able to reduce the algae that mainly comes on the coral reefs. So it's a very important species in a coral reef ecosystem. Again, we have pufferfish, which is very dominant in coral reefs. We have surgeonfish. Besides the fish, we also have invertebrates that also inhabit this ecosystem. And one of them actually is the first one is the manta shrimp. This is a photo that I took sometimes back, I think it was last year, while diving in one of the Kenyan reefs. So if you dive, if you're able to dive in some of these reefs, you realize that you'll find a lot of these invertebrates, and one of the common examples is the manta shrimp. We also have this beautiful crab, which is dominant. It usually likes the crab. This crab usually likes staying, in these branching acroporas. It likes hiding somewhere where it's not seen by probably other predators. Then we also have sea urchins, which are very dominant in the coral reef ecosystem. We have sea cucumbers, and then we have nudibranch. Actually, I saw this nudibranch and I remember last year, we had a photo competition while I was working with Arusha, Kenya. So we had a forum whereby we are presenting the best. We had several themes regarding the ocean. And I remember this photo actually won that theme of the ocean. So it's a very beautiful creature, it's a nudibranch. We also have giant clams, which are very dominant in coral ecosystems. We have starfishes. We have lobsters. We have these snails. And then we also have these squids. So you realize that all these they are invertebrates that are really dominant in the coral ecosystem, and actually they make it so beautiful. That's why a lot of people actually like visiting these areas, because there's a lot of beauty in them. Then besides the invertebrates, you also have the megafauna, which includes sharks. We have turtles. So one, again, maybe to comment again, is that okay, these are the photos so this one, the turtle one, is a photo I took sometimes back while diving on a diving expedition. So this area called Watamu, it's a very biodiverse reef. It's a marine park, so it's got a lot of features in it. So you realize that again, you'll find a lot of also sharks in this area, especially probably the most dominant types of sharks is the black tip reef sharks. They are very dominant in the shallow waters of the marine park because they utilize this area as a breeding area. So whenever the breeding season comes, you find that you'll find so many juvenile sharks along the shallow waters of the marine park. Again, for the turtles, it's a breeding site for turtles. You find that many turtles come here to forage and also to nest. So you find a lot of tags along the beach, which indicate that there are turtle nests along. We also have the rays. This is a blue spotted stingray, which is also captured in Watamu Marine National Park. We have guitar fishes. So I just picked a few examples to just illustrate how biodiverse the coral ecosystem can be. I think there's more than this. Of course, we have other different types of fish that dominate the coral ecosystem. So I think it's good for all of us to understand that besides being an habitat for all these beautiful species, most of these, actually around 25% of the pelagic fish, they utilize the reef as a nursery area. This is because this is an area which has less disturbance. Whenever these species come here, they know they are safe because there's not much maybe predators compared to the open sea, whereby there will be a lot of predators. So they prefer the corals for breeding, and also they form a nursery habitat for the species. And that's why you'll find a lot of juvenile species breeding along in this coral reef. Again, another advantage of this is that there's high chances of survival. Comparing to the open sea, so they'll be able to survive more probably in the coral ecosystem. The other advantage that comes with the coral reef is that it acts like a buffer, protecting the coastlines from erosions and from storms. I think in Kenya we haven't experienced this kind of maybe storms, but I think it's maybe in some countries it happens. But when you have a coral reef, you know that it's able to. The reef is able to protect the high speed of the water or the waves from destroying public residences along the coastline. So they are really important. The other important thing is, for recreation purposes, you find that people travel around the world to come and see coral reefs. So this is a very good example of how they're really important. There's a good feeling that comes with people going snorkeling or diving and seeing beautiful coral reefs. So it really brings a lot of enjoyment. And again, also it's a source of income for the authorities managing these areas. So they're able to get income, which they're able to utilize in either doing restoration of the area or also forming some measures to be able to manage the area properly. So it's a very important key source of income. I was reading a paper today and I realized that in this area, in this Watamu Marine National Park, annually we get around 30,000 tourists who come to visit the park. And so you can, if you calculate that, if you convert that to money, you realize that there's a huge amount of money that comes as a result of tourism. And again, this is able to create jobs opportunities for the youth and also for the boat operators who work around these areas. So it's a really important ecosystem. Can you all hear me? Or
100%, we can hear you, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, just to know that to get together. So our main topic today is we want to know what is the impact of the climate change to the coral reef ecosystem. This is a topic that has been going around for so many years, and we've been hearing that. I mean, it's not a new topic to most of us, we know. So climate change is a big threat to the coral reef ecosystem. And not only in Kenya, I think globally, wherever there's a coral reef, we realize that it has been impacted in one way or the other through this climate change. And what comes as a result of climate change is that usually what happens is we have this rise in sea surface temperatures, which in turn causes thermal stress to the corals. And the corals, they are very sensitive creatures. Whenever there's a slight change in temperature, you realize they get affected and they end up dying or bleaching. And the disadvantage of bleaching is that the recovery can take a lot of years, or maybe there can be no recovery at all. So it's a very key issue that affects the coral reef. For instance, here in Kenya, we've had several bleaching events, starting with the worst one, which was in 1998. This was I think one of the worst bleaching events in the history of Kenya, or actually in the world. We had another one in 2005, although this one wasn't very severe. We had another one in 2007, another bleaching event in 2010. Then we had another one in 2013, 2016. And the most recent one was 1 year ago, that was in 2020. And actually I was able to, together with my team in Watamu, we were able to capture the whole of this bleaching event in 2020. So we're able to track it from the beginning up to the end through continuous coral reef monitoring. So this is our study site that we've been using for the last several years. So this is an area we've been studying to understand how are the corals in this area coping with the change of climate. It's one of the oldest marine parks in Kenya, being established in 1968. It's not that very big. It's around 10 square kilometers, and it forms one of the 4 marine parks that are managed by Kenya Wildlife Service. I think the other marine parks include to the south we have the Kisii-Mpunguti Marine National Park. We have Mombasa Marine National Park. Then we have Watamu Marine National Park, and the other one is Malindi Marine National Park. So yeah, again, they attract a lot of people. People come here to see creatures and all that. So on the right side of my screen is a map. This is a map. This is an habitat map that shows the different habitats in the park. And then what you can see, the arrows you can see, these are the sites we have been monitoring to understand the effects of climate change on these sites. So in each site, we had selected around 20 quadrants in each of the sites. that we're able to monitor every month. We go to the same place and see, and we had these quadrants that we deploy, and we're able to track the corals, the colonies in different months to see how they're changing. So maybe a bit of history about the park. Before the between 1983 and 1997, we had a very high coral cover, which was actually ranging from 40 to 50%. And most of this was dominated by these thermally sensitive corals, like the Acropora, Montifora, and the Procellophoras. And then now after 1997, so we had this the El Nino bleaching event that was in 1998, which actually caused 74% of all the colonies to bleach. This was very severe. And you realize that from the statistics, the cover reduced all the way to 10%. So from 38%, that was in 1997, to around 10% in 1999. That was a very drastic change of the coral cover. And then after between 1999 and 2013, again, the coral cover was low because the corals, it was hard for them to be able to recover quickly. Therefore, the cover was still low between this period. And then now we had this recovery period between 2013 and 2020, whereby now the coral cover started increasing, and it got all the way to 25%. So from the work we've been doing in Watamu, on the right side, you realize these are the corals we've identified as being sensitive, and the one we've seen that they're really resistant to bleaching. What I mean by sensitive is that in the time we've been doing the data collation, we realized that these sensitive corals, they easily bleach because maybe of their structure or the way they're exposed to the water. So these are the three types that we saw that they're really sensitive to the thermal stress. And that's the Procelophora, the Acrophoras, and the Montifora. Then we also identified that we have three types that are also very resistant. That's the Echinophora. Then we have the Dipsastrea and the Platygyra. So from our monitoring, we realized that these three, they easily, they're really hardy. They're able to survive even in the hard conditions whenever the waters are heating. Now, that was in 2020. So the bleaching event for 2020 began in the month of March. That's when, through our frequent snorkeling in the park, we realized that there are some changes, and we realized that some corals had started bleaching. So what we did is that we came up with a plan to monitor the corals through the use of these quadrats. So this is a 1 by 1 meter quadrat that we placed randomly. So in each site, as I've said previously, we were selecting around 20 points in each site. And in each point now we place this 1 by 1 meter quadrat and then take a photo from above. So this photo would be able to capture the colonies inside. And as you can see, the first photo was taken in March, and you can see that this is still an early bleaching event. And most corals are still alive. You realize there's a very beautiful purple Acropora here. It looks very healthy. We have a white boulder here, which is probably showing signs of bleaching. Then the same place, we took a picture in April, and you can see the change. I think the second photo is a bit twisted, but it's the same point. And you realize that the purple color in this Acropora has already disappeared, which means there's some stress coming up. The same place, we took a photo in May, and you can see actually May was the peak of the bleaching event. That's when we had that's when the temperatures were really high. And you can see that in the same point, most of the corals have now bleached, and now algae is starting to form. The same point we repeated in June, and you realize that most of the corals now, they are being covered by algae, which appears to cover their surface. And this is really bad, because it's a bad sign that the corals are really getting through a lot of heat stress. Then the last one is the photo taken in July, which, in July, that was, I think, 2 months after the peak of the bleaching. So you realize that there's some sort of recovery. We were not seeing some new recruits appearing in some of the sites. So I think this is just a snapshot of a snapshot of the 2020 bleaching. We've done monitoring after that. I think maybe in the future, totally able to share about the current situation. But I just thought it's good for you to understand how climate change can really impact the corals through the work that we've been doing. So you can see how the areas have changed. And this is just one point in the park. We have several points in the park. So I'm sure the other areas also look similar to this one. I also thought it's good to show you another example. This is again another example of a point we've been monitoring. So this is the coral inside the quadrat. It's a Posibacora, and you can see in March it looked a bit healthy, although the tips of the corals that started bleaching. And then I think around 4 or 5 months down the line, that was in August, you can see how the corals have changed. It has turned completely white because of the thermal stress. Again, down here is a mushroom coral. This is usually how it looks like when it's healthy. It has some purplish color. But then you can see the change. You can see that on the right-hand side, it's completely white, which is a sign of bleaching. So I think to me, I was very disappointed actually when we started the monitoring, because I was feeling like we've lost it all, because you can't see any hope in the recovery of the reef. Imagine going snorkeling to a reef and all you can see is just white color across the reef. So that was very disappointing, and at some point I felt like, it really hurt me because I'm so passionate about coral reefs, and seeing that kind of a situation was very saddening. But then down below the line, we realized that there was a sign of recovery in some of the reefs. So these pictures are pictures of corals that had already bleached and died. But then after I think around 7 months, we could see signs of recovery. You can see some new recruits coming up from the dead corals, which was a sign of recovery. But then the thing is, it's a very slow process. I mean, it takes a lot of time for the reef to recover to the way it was originally. So I don't know if something can happen to really make it go back the way it was originally. So, but then again, it's a good sign because it can show that the reef is recovering. So, in addition to climate change, there are other things that are really causing pressures on coral reefs. And one of them is these trolling nets that get lost at sea. And what they do is they drag along the bottom of the ocean, breaking down the corals in the reefs. So this is a really big threat. The same case with dynamite fishing. These are chemicals that can impact negatively on the corals. And again, we have these ghost nets that come as a result of losing fishing gears at sea. This is a picture of me. This is the time we had gone. I think we had finished our monitoring at some site, and I saw this ghost net. So I was trying to remove it from the entangled coral, at least be able to avoid further damage to the reef or even to other creatures. So again, we have the issue of plastics. That's pollution basically. It's a big threat to the whole world right now. The issue of plastic pollution. We have sewage, and especially these areas that have beautiful reefs are the areas which are around marine parks. And this is an area whereby there's a lot of construction, sort of developments and big hotels. And in some cases, there can be a leakage of sewage into the sea. And what this can do is that it can cause this, what we call eutrophication. There can be a lot of nutrients in the water that can cause algal blooms. And then this can have negative impacts on the corals. So I think pollution right now, again, is a big threat to the coral ecosystem. Again, we also have destruction of the surrounding habitats, probably along the riparian zone. So when people cut mangroves and other shrubs along the riparian zone, they tend to lead to a lot of erosion or the flooding water getting to the sea with sort of different chemicals, and this can cause a lot of harm. And then again, we have the issue of mining. I think this is not, mining has not been very frequent in Kenya, but I remember there's a case in 2016 in the south coast of Kenya in an area called Tiwi. So there was a mining activity of sand that was taking place, but I think it is stopped, it was able to be stopped. So this can really cause very harmful effects to the coral reefs. So, I mean, all of you, I think you can see the amount of threat that these coral reefs are facing, in addition to the heating waters and in addition to the rising temperatures. So if you combine all those threats with the human threats, then you can realize, you can see how the big picture of how they're really getting affected by all those threats. From what we've been doing in Watamu, we've realized that the complex nature of the coral reef can actually make it difficult to pinpoint which exact conservation activity to take place or to implement in order to improve the conditions. Because corals that they're very complex. There's need for a lot of research to be able to really know what can be able to improve the resilience in those areas. For here, I've been able to suggest a few actions that we saw that they can be used in areas where we have coral reefs to be able to increase the resilience of the reefs. And one of them is the stopping of the fishing. So the reason why I thought this is a good idea is because the fish they control or they maintain the ecological links in a coral ecosystem, and this can be able to promote resilience. For instance, the issue of, for example, the parrotfish, which eats more on algae, is a very important species because it's able to control the algal levels in an ecosystem, and this is very important. The second action that is really good is the protection of the riparian zone. This is mostly the shrubs that grow along the riparian area of the sea. So when these are protected, then there will be no leakage of maybe swells or maybe erosion happening, and this can really cause reefs to thrive well. The other issue is the issue of coastal development, which I think is another key threat facing our coral ecosystem. Because for developers, they'll choose an area which has beautiful reef, which can be able to attract probably the visitors. So if this is not controlled, then you realize this can lead to a lot of damage, and especially with the issue of building construction, there happens to be this sedimentation, and this ends up covering the corals and makes them die. So I think if this controlled, then it can be able to really help in the resilience of the reef. The other issue is the issue of runoff. As I've mentioned earlier, the issue of cyanobacteria growing on the colonies is a big threat, and this is usually caused by probably high levels of nitrates and phosphates which come along with the sewage systems. So if this can be controlled, then it can be able to increase the resilience of the reef. And then the last option, which I think has now become very common along the reefs, is the restoration. And this is only not just restoration, it's something called selective breeding, whereby you only pick the colonies that are resistant to bleaching, because there's no need of putting effort into planting corals that are very sensitive, and then a year after, you realize they are all dead. So I think selective breeding is the way to go if we really want to restore our ecosystem. So I think that's more of an overview of of the actions that can be able to lead to the restoration of these areas. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening. And back to you, Johan. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric, for a very interesting talk, and I enjoyed your photographs. And yes, you whet our appetite to come and visit you. I was just quite interested because, I mean, Kenya is located on the equator. So they also, from what I understand, have a winter similar to us in the southern hemisphere. But your major bleaching event actually happened in months that I would almost consider to be colder months, not hotter months. I think it was March, April, May, June when it occurred. So was it specifically due to the temperatures, or could it have been due to pollution? Because I would have thought that if there was a bleaching event due to temperature, it would have happened in summer, in December. I don't know, maybe I've got the wrong end of geography.
No, actually, you are very right. I also was very surprised because that time of the year is when we usually have a lot of rains in Kenya, and it's usually very cold. But then 2020, it was a very unique year, and in March it was actually very hot here. It was very hot in Kenya. So probably the bleaching started early March, and then we realized, I think towards the middle of the month, that's when we realized that the corals were really bleaching. So, but then again, what we try to do is that, because bleaching can be a combination of several factors or drivers, and we tried to do water quality sampling in some areas of the park to know whether sewage pollution could be a factor as well. But then again, I think it's a study that we're not able to. We are still pursuing the study because probably of funding issues and all that. But I think again that could be a contribution, bearing in mind that we have that issue of nutrients. The other thing maybe that you need to know is where Watamu Marine National Park is situated. North of Watamu, we have a river. It's called Sabaki River that drains in the ocean. So there's an estuary somewhere in Malindi. And from I think in 2019, I was part of a project which was doing coral mapping along the whole of the Kenyan coast. And so in this area, when we went to Malindi, we realized there's a lot of sediments that are coming as a result of the river. And also, of course, a river comes with so many pollutants and all that stuff. And actually, we realized that there's a lot of it coming even close to the park, which could be also another factor that is causing or stressing these corals. So yeah, and I agree with you, it's a combination of different factors. And I think as we go along the years, we'll be able to really determine and know whether it's really whether it is an addition to the temperature that is causing the bleaching to happen in the park.
And then I was just wondering, the second question is, do you have or is it possible to almost see whether this has maybe happened historically by going deeper into the corals, or doing they do ice cores or something like that? Is it possible to see if bleaching events have actually happened in the past, whatever, hundreds of years ago, or is this kind of the first time ever that bleaching events have happened on corals?
So when I joined Arusha, Kenya, so Arusha, Kenya is a Christian conservation organization. They are located like 100 meters from the park. And I think one of my colleagues, Kira, was here weeks ago to talk about the citizen science. I think you heard that. So yeah. So again, Arusha, they have this history. They've been doing coral monitoring. Actually, that's their backbone project. That's their main project in Watamu. They've been doing this work for the last several years. So they have an history. They have data to show the different bleaching events, starting with the 1998. But I don't know about before 1998, I don't know whether they had those data, but I know they have data for the bleaching events that I mentioned in my slides. So yeah, you can see that we have publications that we've done. You can read about the historical sort of bleaching events.
Now, sorry, I was wondering if is it possible to find out by kind of digging deeper whether bleaching events are things that have happened like hundreds of years ago, or is it a modern phenomenon only? I think Sabil wants to answer my question.
Okay, so I'm going to read Sabil's. Yeah, Sabil's message says, Marty, bleaching is a very recent event all around the world. It's linked to El Nino and clearly caused by climate change.
So there's no evidence of it in the past? Ever.
Definitely, no, yeah, definitely. And I really confirm what Eric says. We have it all along the region. I mean, Tanzania as well, at the same time, bleaching is severe all along the coast of East Africa. And it's been happening. I think the big shock was 1998 all around the world. That's when we learned about bleaching, never seen it before. There might have been isolated events somewhere, but the world woke up to bleaching in 1998. That was the big shock. Yeah. And since then, we have it every 2 years or so, exactly like Eric said. Also in Chuba, we have it. And this year, you might have heard, this year, 91% of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is bleached. That's catastrophic. That's catastrophic. Yeah, that's catastrophic. So it is very clearly linked to climate change. It's much researched. And Eric was actually reporting some of the causes. Definitely, temperature is the biggest causant, about 30 degrees. The corals start expelling those algae they need for their nutrition. And if they can't recover them within a few weeks, they will die. And once they die, they're overgrown with algae and they can't get the sun anymore. And it's very difficult for them to recover. Yeah, exactly like Eric said. Ongera sana, Eric. Umelewa vizuri sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Sibyl.
Thank you, Marty. On that, like you said, you showed a few reefs that did recover. How long on average do they take to recover?
So the recovery period will again depend on the water conditions. So yeah, that will depend on the water conditions and whether it's favorable for them to recover. And again, also depending on the species. So that's all the coral genera. So it depends with different stuff. But I think from what we've been saying is, Watamu has this history. From the data that we've been able to record and from what our colleagues from other conservation organizations have done, we've realized that actually the recovery rate of the park is very low. Okay, the reason why it's still undiscovered because it's open to research. But I think it's one of the areas along the Kenyan coast that we realize it has low recovery rates. So yeah, again, as I said, it depends with the water conditions, whether it's favorable or not, and also the species. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, before we get to Judith Masters, just one more question. Like Echinopora and Diapistria, those ones that are more resistant, what do you think makes them more resistant? Do you know?
Yeah, I think what makes them resistant is probably their form, the way they are, sort of physically,
Okay.
It's not like when you compare a coral like Acropora, which is a very sensitive coral, it is really very exposed. Like the branches are very exposed to the water, and also it's because for this case, for these pictures, I took them in Watamu, and they said it's a lagoon. It's a lagoon whereby at low tide the water can get even low as 1 meter, and so you can imagine the level of heating that can happen on a 1 meter deep water. So these Acropora, they are very exposed to the environment, unlike the Echinopora, which is more of a blanket and it's just lying at the bottom of it.
Oh, I understand. Access location. Okay. I need to get to Judith Masters. Thank you, Eric.
Hello, and thank you so much, both of you. I don't mind waiting because now I've got more questions. Eric, thank you so much for that lovely talk and those beautiful pictures. And I can't tell you how envious I am of you living in that wonderful environment. But the first thing I want to say about El Nino is that El Nino is not a recent event. It's been going on for 3 million years since the Pliocene. So this is something that has happened on a recurrent basis for a very long time in Africa's history. Anyway, push that aside because that's not the question I wanted to ask you. The question I wanted to ask is because for a lot of terrestrial ecosystems, ecotourism is often very damaging. And I wondered if marine or coral reef ecotourism is one of those rare conditions where having lots and lots of tourists come in and diving around and photographing this wonderful wildlife under the ocean, if this is one of those rare places where there's not a lot of damage caused by the ecotourists. That was my original question, and Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith, for that question. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Again, El Nino has been a continuous thing. That's very right. The issue of ecotourism, I think one unique thing with Watamu is, it's this area which has been branded so many titles. I mean, good titles. It's a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. It's a marine mammal area. So we have a lot of humpback whales. During the annual migration, they pass around this area. And then again, it's an area which has a lot of attraction to tourists because of the diverse nature of the coral reef. And as a result of this, it attracts so many people coming here to snorkel and, again, with tourism also, it has its negative impacts. You realize people, they add more pressure. We have the sunscreens and people stepping on the corals, breaking them. This can really cause a lot of damage. The boats are dropping their anchors on the corals. So, it has a lot of negative impacts. But I think, the management has really tried. They have tried to control this population and be able to designate an area which is only for snorkeling in a way that will reduce pressure on other areas of the park. So, yeah, I don't know if that has answered your question, right?
Okay, thank you, Eric. The next one in line is Peter Musila.
Hey, thank you. Well, thank you, Eric, for your presentation. It's really nice. My question is, I see you've mentioned management of water, runoff water as one of the management tools that can be adopted in future for the marine park. And you also mentioned that nutrients could also be increasing these factors of bleaching. So I don't know if you can maybe pinpoint to maybe some specific parameters that you would think would prefer best for the park, given the work you've done previously. Like what specific maybe nutrients you would want to look at this particular, like have you apart from the warming, the surface temperatures, the nutrients, what type of nutrients do you think are more important to consider in that specific location? I mean, I don't know if you understand. Just as part of of your recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter. So maybe for the audience, Peter Musila is the one who took over after me after I left Arusha, although I'm still working with them, but on a part-time basis. So I think he's trying to trigger my mind. He knows exactly what's happening. So, but anyway, I'll answer. So one thing is with the runoff water, I think this is a very important thing to control because, again, how you can do this, how you can control the runoff water is through protection of the riparian zone. So if you visit Watamu, you realize that there's a lot of forest and shrubs along the riparian zone, and this is able to reduce the amount of flooding water into the ocean. So if this is maintained, if this condition is maintained, then this can reduce the impacts of flooding of the rainwater into the sea. This can really help. On the second thing of the nutrient levels. So with nutrient levels, what causes this condition of eutrophication is the excessive nutrients in the sea. And these nutrients are usually the nitrates and the phosphates. Those are the two parameters that they are very important to look at. So because the nitrates and phosphates are the ones that usually cause the eutrophication. And whenever eutrophication happens, you realize that there's that algal blooms, forming on the surface of the water, and there's more light penetration. That thereafter the corals can't be able to make their own food, something like that. So if you're able to check two parameters, then I think it'd be on the right path to know what's happening.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. Thank you, Eric. Just want to know, before we go on to Andy Klee, what caused that recovery between 2013 and 2020? Do you know?
Yeah, for that period, so from the historical data, so we have our colleagues who have put temperature loggers in the park. So these are loggers which are able to take record temperatures along the lagoon to see how they are fluctuating or something like that. So during this period, there was no, the temperature was in optimal levels. So that is why, from the past research, that's why there was no bleaching at that moment. So there was a sign of recovery. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Then we're going to go to Andy Klee.
Hello, thank you very much, Eric. It's Jubilee celebrations here, so hence the flag. It's not a colonial recreation or anything mad like that. Thank you for a wonderful talk. I know we associate climate change with increased ocean temperatures as a threat to coral reefs, but how concerned should we be about changes to the acid content in the oceans because of the carbon dioxide that's being absorbed on the health of coral reefs?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I think generally we tend to associate climate change with the high sea surface temperatures, but then there are other impacts of the climate change. So again, with the acidity levels, again, that's another key factor that can also contribute to the coral bleaching. But I don't know if you've seen that there's been a lot of efforts along I think the whole of the Kenyan coast and even in Tanzania to do restoration in other ecosystems, that is the forest ecosystems, including the mangroves. We have the issue of the carbon credits coming up. So I think in as much as we have this as a factor as well, in addition to the temperature, we also have people trying to put in effort to reduce this impact of the climate change through these programs of restoring the mangrove forest and all that. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's also another. I think it's a key thing that we tend to undermine and look at it like climate change is only, it's only about temperature increasing, yeah, something like that.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Sybil had her hand up. I don't know if she still wants to ask a question, Sybil. Okay, because then her second question in the chat was, the Marine Park Authority should have a mandate about building regulations, zero sewage sanitation. Is this possible? Is possible. Do you agree?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
I mean, maybe to add up to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to invite Eric to Chumba Island in Zanzibar, our marine park there. Yeah, because we do have, I don't know whether I've heard about it, Eric, we have zero sewage. Yeah? All our buildings have composting toilets, and even the shower water is recycled in vegetative filtration plant beds. It's like artificial wetlands. Yeah, so there's zero sewage, and our corals are doing actually much better than most other corals in Tanzania. So karibu sana to see how you can build in a marine park without damaging the corals. Yeah, we cannot change the temperature of the water. We cannot change the problems with acidification, which all are very true and hugely problematic all around the world. They are, yeah. But we can certainly limit the impact on the site through the building, how we build, and also how we manage tourism. No anchors on the reef, so mooring buoys everywhere. And tourists don't use sunscreen, and they're also not trampling on the corals. All this can be managed and regulated, and that's how you have to do it. And ongera sana, Eric, I hope in Watamu you win the battle, because sometimes not everybody's on your side there. Yeah, so you need to really, the authority needs to have a say in these things and be able to enforce also the park regulations. Asante sana.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sibyl. May I ask, what is a substitute for sunscreen? Do you have any?
Substitute for sunscreen?
Yeah. So if you can't use the sunscreen, do you?
Sorry, Sibyl, just unmute yourself, please. I'm aware of what they do, Sibyl. Just unmute yourself.
Sure. It's not allowed sunscreen in Chumbe. We just wear skins, you know, long. You wear leggings. You wear like it's also protecting you against sunburn, which is very important for Zungu, for the tourists, and protects you against also some stings of jellyfish. So our tourists don't go into the water with just bathing suits or bikinis. We give them skins. I mean, like long sleeved t-shirts and leggings or so. Yeah. So there's no need for sunscreen. There's no need for sunscreen.
Okay. So that's
It's
perfect.
not, Sibyl, it's not very sexy, but it's efficient.
No, it looks very sexy. It's tight. Actually, some ladies like it if it's black. They look slimmer.
I have to say that because we're in Cape Town and the water's cold here, Ruan and I have wetsuits, so we all set for our trip to Kenya and maybe Chumbe afterwards.
Yeah, in warm water, Aisha.
Yeah,
but you want to, it's too hot, you know, you're really boiled in your wetsuit, and then you can't snorkel, you can't dive down because it has so much, and we confirm, you can't go down. If you want to look closer at a coral, you just want to go down. If you have a 3 millimeter thing or so, you just can't make it without carrying a lot of weight, which the divers need a lot of weight to be able to go down, actually. Kilos of lead on the body.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we'll invest, we'll make a plan.
We'll just wear skins.
Okay. We're gonna wear the skins. Okay, so I don't see any more questions, Ruan.
No, there's no questions, just a few comments. Maybe we can read Professor Liesel van Ass's comment. We cannot continue blaming, and she very rightly says El Nino, the little boy and the little girl La Nina, also plays a role. And we should always remember, and it's very important to remember the difference there between climate and weather and time. It's all about time. These two systems, La Nina and El Nino, have been going on for very, very many years, and which is the frequency that that makes the change. And she says in the last bit of a sentence, and please don't forget Homo sapiens, which is at the root of all of these problems that Eric and everyone else has mentioned. Thank you, Prof. Van As, for that. And then Andy Klee, you gave us a royalty-free book review there, The Blue Wonder. He says by Frauke, oh, that is a surname, but you can just check in the chat section. Go and give The Blue Wonder a look. Well, a read actually, and maybe Andy, you can when we start our book reviews, you can be the first one to give a little book review, a little summary of 1 minute summary about The Blue Wonder. That would be absolutely awesome. So yeah, but no, I can't see any other questions. So, but if there are, just wave at us, jump up and down, and we'll be there with you. Any other comments you want to make, Eric? Well, Chris wants to do something. Chris is jumping up and down.
Chris has got to go, and he just wants to say thank you so much to Eric. Hello, Andy Klee. Man, when I see you, I've got these good feelings. Not true, but anyway, Eric, you helped us out big time. I mean, it's such a, and we totally understand that our speaker had to cancel. I mean, she was really very, very sick, but thanks for coming in, Eric. It's, and such short notice and a beautiful presentation. Really enjoyed, and thank you very, very much. And lastly, please do register for Share Screen, simply because we want to have a designated Share Screen YouTube, and for that we need 100 people to register. If you, Maret and Ruan, if you can just send the address out again. You only register, that's what you do, then it's done. I mean, you will get notices, but it will help us to have a designated address. Thank you, everybody. I unfortunately have to go. They delivered the pizza at the wrong address and they delivered it at my address. So I better go and eat it now. Lucky can be. Okay,
Thanks,
everyone.
Chris.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye, Chris.
Nice.
Bye.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Well, if Marty's correct, well, Marty, you have to, but according to Marty, Share Screen now has 109 subscribers. So it all panned out beautifully. Maret, thank you for sharing the link again. So everyone, I think I'm one of the guilty ones that still need to go and subscribe as well. Sabina, the screen's all yours.
Maybe a question, Eric, like everybody in tourism has the same question. How did you survive the last 2 years of the COVID? I mean, how was tourism doing to Watamu? I mean, how did you manage to keep the park running with no tourist income?
Yeah, actually, I can confess that we've had the hardest, the last 2 years have been very hard for Watamu, bearing in mind the amount of income that we've been used to getting every year from the tourists coming. So it was a very hard time to cope sort of in the park. But then again, we came up with with programs to be able to engage the boat operators because these are the people that really earn a lot from the park. And whenever there's no people to take out for snorkeling, then they might be tempted to probably go fishing or engage in something which is not right. So we had this other project. It's a marine governance project whereby we're able to interact with them and be able to sort of engage with them, mostly to keep in touch and see what's happening. The second thing is we had there was no much an interaction socially, but then we had other NGOs along Watamu who had this campaign for collecting plastics. So you collect plastics along the beach, and then you go and get paid for that. So it's a way of giving something at least to earn it because there's not much income coming in. But then again, I think for the government, it was a hard time because there's no income and you need to do patrols in the park to see that there's no illegal activity. Yeah, so it was a really hard situation. But I think right now things are coming up well, and yeah, it's not that bad at the moment.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And maybe before I forget, I would also want to say that I would be happy maybe in the future to share more findings about this project we are doing. Whatever I showed is just what happened in the 2020 bleaching event. But then we have data now for last year and for this year to show now the progress, where we are at in terms of the status of the park. So maybe in the future, maybe I'm looking forward to again coming back and sharing, like what have we done so far? What's the progress? What actions have we taken? Have we initiated any restoration programs to be able to increase the resilience? So there's a lot of good things in store. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely going to hold you to that, Eric.
Yeah.
So we'll contact you in the future again.
Thank you so much.
But thank you so much. This is a phenomenal talk. I don't see any more questions. So, another one from Andy Klee.
I just won't shut up. Sorry, Eric, I'm living in your twinned biosphere reserve in the North Devon Biosphere Reserve. I think I found you on Instagram, and we're trying to do local education with our school children, trying to get funding in place for it, but I might tap you up to see if we can do a live link up one day with one of the classrooms. It's another pipe dream of mine, but we might get there one day. But look forward to your next presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And we'll definitely link you up with Eric. Maret, if you can make a note of that, I've also made it. And if I remember, I will remind you tomorrow. Wonderful. So thank you, Maret. There we go with the thumbs up. So as the rule goes, Chris is gonna, but usually when we reach the numbers that we have, 23, we say good night. So I'm going to say good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from the world. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And Eric, again, thank you very much for a beautiful talk and reminding us of the importance of our oceans and our coral reefs. Aisha, thank you very much for hosting with me tonight. Maret, Johan, and Duret, thank you very much for keeping the ship, the ship floating, it's ship shape, you're there in the background. It's absolutely lovely, and we had a great evening. Everyone, cheers for now. See you next week.